Good morning. President Park Geun-hye spends the first of a three-day state visit to Uzbekistan with Korean immigrants in the country. Up next, the presidential summit. And this trip is a part of a six-day tour to Central Asia, a region where exchanges have taken place for quite some time, and boosting those ties is the agenda. Sensors that can detect danger before it can become a disaster. Technology that can analyze what's in the atmosphere. It's all here. 24 articulating vertebrae. A problem with any one of those can immobilize a person. More on spinal health on Korea Today, Tuesday, June 17th, 2014.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
Thanks for joining us on Korea Today on this Tuesday morning. I'm Oh Jin-ju alongside Kim Young. Yeah, we're just a day away from Korea's first World Cup match against Russia, which will take place at 7 a.m. Wednesday, Korea time.
That's right, exactly 24 hours away. And the Red Devils are known as the Korean national team soccer fans, and they're known as almost the 12th player, the 11th man on the field, right? They do a lot of cheering, and cheering is going to be out there in the Gwanghwamun Plaza area.
Right. That due to the recent Seoul ferry disaster, the street cheering will be toned down a bit this year. And considering the time, 7 a.m. when people head to the office, it is considered to be a little smaller in scale than previous World Cup games.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be out there.
We'll be here in the
we'll
studio
be here in the
with
studio,
us,
right? But beginning at about 12 o'clock or so, people are expected to flock to those areas. And also another point of interest is that the Yeongdong-daero Street, or the Yeongdong-daero Road, in between the COEX and Samsung Station, it will be filled with people, as well as cheering activities will commence there too. And now we go to our top story for this morning. On day one of her state visit to Uzbekistan, President Park Geun-hye met with Koreans and descendants of Korean Russian immigrants and vowed to expand economic cooperation and ties with Central Asia. In Tashkent on Monday, President Park promoted her Eurasia Initiative, the plan where she intends to link energy and infrastructure in Eurasia. The president promised the creation of more jobs in both countries through the synergy of Korea's advanced technologies and Uzbekistan's rich resources. President Park also assured state affairs back home would see the revamping of the national safety system.
비정상적인 관행과 문제들을 추상같이 바로잡고 경제 활성화의 불길을 살려서 세계 속에 자랑스러운 대한민국을 반드시 만들어 가겠습니다.
The South Korean president asked for support for her trust politics on the Korean peninsula and said Seoul would respond firmly to Pyongyang's provocative behavior. On Tuesday, President Park is scheduled to hold summit talks with Uzbek President Islam Karimov to discuss ways to strengthen the two countries' strategic partnership. And the nation's next prime minister is turning out to be a difficult search as opposition parties are finding controversial factors in one candidate after another. A motion calling for parliamentary confirmation of the new prime minister nominee Moon Chang-guk will be submitted to the National Assembly on Tuesday in the midst of the controversial debate over his past comments on history. In a lecture delivered at his church in 2011, Moon said Japan's colonization of Korea and the division of the Korean peninsula was all part of God's will. He also wrote an editorial that Korea doesn't need an apology from Japan for using sex slaves during and before World War II. Moon has since apologized and gave an explanation saying that these comments were made when he was a journalist and that he would act and behave accordingly if and when he takes public office. Legislators have 20 days to vote on the appointment once the request is filed.
And as Young mentioned, President Park is currently on a 6-day trip to Central Asia, and attention is being drawn to the countries in the region that the president is visiting, namely Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan. Although these countries might sound quite unfamiliar to many in Korea, personal and cultural exchanges between Korea and Central Asian nations have already taken place since very long ago. To tell us more, we connect live to our Choi Hyung-ju, who is at a rather special location here in Seoul. Hyung-ju?
Well, good morning, Jinju. I'm at the Korea's largest fashion district, Dongdaemun-gu, which is filled with international tourists on weekends. And here are some signboards in Cyrillic characters, which are used in Central Asia. Well, back in the 1990s, Central Asian restaurants and stores started to flock one by one to the area. And not only that, the relationship between Korea and Central Asia deepened through marriage, education, and technology and cultural exchanges. So how many Central Asians are living here in Korea, and what made them stay? Let's take a look. Korea and Central Asia used to trade during the ancient times via the Silk Road. Nowadays, trading between them continue here at Korea's largest fashion market, Dongdaemun.
Here you can find not only Mongolian towns, but also diverse towns of different nationalities. I can easily find foods and friends from my home country. I can also shop for all sorts of Korean products, so I come here often.
About 150 stores ranging from restaurants to trading agencies, banks, and grocery stores are concentrated around Central Asia town. Now, when did it first emerge?
Central Asia Street was established in the mid-1990s. At that time, there was great interest in Korean culture and products, influenced by the Korean wave in Central Asia. This led to numerous immigrant workers coming to Korea, and today we have many students coming here as well.
This Uzbek restaurant in Central Asia town is filled with customers on weekends.
I'm happy to see an Uzbek restaurant here in Seoul. It's really nice to see various restaurants from Central Asia, such as Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Also, the food is delicious.
Even without traveling abroad, we now have opportunities to try different foods from overseas. I think this leads to more open-mindedness towards multicultural families and foreigners. It's a great type of cultural exchange.
In Korea, you can easily meet people from Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and Mongolia. Among the 6 Central Asian countries, the population of Uzbek residents is the greatest. As of today, about 69,000 Central Asians are living in Korea. Most of them come to Korea for their jobs, marriage, and education. Once a week, Kazakh students meet at the Embassy of Kazakhstan in Seoul. Students are here to share information on residential life and education. What has led them to come to Korea?
The main reason I stayed here so long is the Korean food culture. When I first came to Korea, I was fascinated by local dishes such as kimchi, samgyetang, and galbitang. When I return home, I'd love to promote various aspects of Korean culture, and it'd be great if both countries become closer.
The students never stop making an effort in learning about the Korean food culture and lifestyle. They share a part of their culture with traditional music performances, hoping to become the bridge of educational and cultural exchange.
So I would like to be like the Koreans, like to be more motivated to work. I got like 4 very interesting courses here. So I think this will help me to be more like good at like management or marketing in business. So I would like to just implement this knowledge in Kazakhstan in my future career.
Korean diplomatic institutions are also promoting Korea to Central Asia via exhibitions and performances. Yet another example of the effort between Korea and Central Asian countries to become culturally closer to each other.
At the end of June, the very first Korean Scholars Conference will be held in Kyrgyzstan. I believe it will serve as an opportunity to further promote Korea in the region by dispatching visiting professors or teaching the Korean language.
The active exchange of human resource and culture continues. setting a solid stepping stone for President Park Geun-hye's Eurasia Initiative.
So Hyungju, Korea and Central Asian countries have maintained a close relationship historically and even right now. And President Park's trip to the region is expected to further boost these ties. And I hear that there are various events taking place here in Korea that come in line with the president's visit to that region.
That's right, Jinju. Some universities are holding a photo exhibition on ancient Silk Road, showing the traces of the ancient trade route linking the East and the West. And also, Korea Federation of Small and Medium Business will hold an export consulting conference this week. And also, the Korean government is sharing its diverse administration experiences and know-how to public officials from Central Asia.
So it's not just cultural exchanges. Cooperation is expanding to the economic and administrative fronts as well. All right, Hyungju, thank you for that report today. That was our Choi Young-ju reporting live on the relationship between Korea and Central Asian nations.
Good morning. It's time to run through the front pages of your newspapers. And another set of wide-ranging stories this morning on the domestic papers. And there is quite an interesting one on 동아일보. So we'll go ahead and start with that. Now, the headline reads, Russian Koreans to come through Siberia and North Korea to visit South Korea. So about 60 Russian Koreans or Koryoin in Korean living over in Russia will be embarking on a great journey next month. And the sub-headlines here say that the Russian government as well as the South and North Korean governments have made their first round of agreements on this, with all of them willing to actively cooperate in making such an event possible. The paper adds that if this event is successful, it will act as a crucial opportunity in improving the strained relations between the two Koreas, as well as signal a milestone in cooperation between the divided countries and Russia. Now, if we take a look at this map, I can tell you how this trip will take place. They will start over in Moscow on July 6th to reach Pyongyang. They'll come down this way through North Korea to reach Pyongyang on the 13th of August, so it will take over a month there, past the Kaesong Industrial Complex to reach Seoul on August 15th, so they'll aim for National Liberation Day here in Korea. Finally, they plan to come down to Busan, arrive there on the 19th of August to wrap up this inspirational journey. Now, while we keep our fingers crossed for this expedition to come true, we'll go to another story regarding North Korea on 조선일보. And this story is about North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's latest movements. The headline says Kim Jong-un boards a North Korean submarine on the 15th anniversary of first Yeonpyeong naval battle. Now, Kim Jong-un inspected a Navy submarine unit, stressing the need to raise combat preparations and underwater operation capability, according to the Korean Central News Agency just yesterday. Now, here on the right, the pictures of Kim Jong-un as he uses a periscope aboard the submarine in a photo released yesterday by the North Nodong Shinmun, which said the young leader observed a naval drill in his visit to the North's 167th Naval Unit stationed on the East Coast. Now, in the meantime, South Korean Defense Ministry spokesperson Kim Min-seok said at a regular briefing that it was quite unusual for North Korea to even reveal the inside of its submarine. It appears that Pyongyang aims to show off the might of its submarine, he said. It also happens to be that the North Korean leader got on the submarine on the day that marks the 15th year since the first Yeonpyeong naval battle, in which the South defeated the North. And quickly moving on to the front page images here on 중앙일보. These are the fans, football fans cheering on their national teams over at the World Cup. Now, the title of the picture reads, First match against Russia tomorrow, hoping for smiles. As we all know by now, the Korean national team is getting ready for its first battlefield in Cuiabá, Brazil, where it will kick off against Russia at 7 a.m. tomorrow, Korea time. Hopefully, we'll be able to put on our smiles of victory. So let's wish Team Korea good luck. And finally, moving on to some business news. First up on the Korea Economic Daily regarding Samsung Electronics. The title reads, Local banks can't handle Samsung's export volume. So it looks like domestic banks are unable to handle the amount of exports coming from Samsung Electronics that has been surging rapidly, hence are having to turn to foreign banks to pass on their trade financial markets. The Daily adds that within the past 3 years, Samsung Electronics' export volume has increased by 50%, while local banks' equity capital only by 10%. Thus, the credit ceilings at banks are already full here in the country, so these banks are unable to settle the necessary trade. And lastly, taking a look at the Mail Business newspaper, we'll go on to that story towards the bottom. And the headline says, crude oil and gold prices soar on Iraq crisis. Now, the prices of major commodities, including oil and gold, are going through the roof amid increasing violence over in Iraq. In the meantime, the subheadline says the Iraq turmoil has also put downward pressure on the Korean currency won, but sent local stocks slightly higher. The won finished yesterday at 1,020.1 won per dollar, down 2.3 won from just last weekend. And that was a look at your newspaper headlines for this Tuesday, and more on stocks from Monday's market action.
And today we're seeing overcast skies nationwide here in Korea. And for the southern regions, rain is in the forecast as the monsoon front is approaching.
All right. So if you do want to be that 12th member on the field cheering on the national team, then if you're in the southern region, you might want to have a poncho or something like that with you, right? For more on the weather, we're now joined by Jeon Sung-cho from Changchung Gongwon or Changchung Park. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. I'm reporting live from the Changchung Park. When it comes to summer, of course, we can't leave out the seasonal rain, can we? The Korean Meteorological Administration predicts that this year's monsoon season will begin towards the end of this month for the inland areas. However, Jeju will receive its first monsoonal rain today. We have a monsoonal front all the way down south in the South Sea from Jeju that will give up heavy showers up to 60 millimeters, possibly containing thunder and lightning. This front will move away by the end of the day, but is expected to come back on Friday once again, bringing back the rainy weather for the southern regions. For the central regions, including here in Seoul, there are chances of precipitation from 5 to 10 millimeters in the late afternoon due to a ridge of high pressure system that's all the way over in the northern part of the East Sea. So you should definitely remember to take your umbrella with you on your way out this morning. Now let's move on over to a closer look at today's forecast. A thick blanket of clouds covering the entire peninsula is bringing down the midday highs overall. Seoul's highs are the warmest at 28, while Gangneung remains the coolest at 20 degrees Celsius. This is all for me with the weather update. Back to you, Jinju.
And time now for a look through the global headlines this morning. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim at the News Center. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Junju.
Now, in an unprecedented move, the U.S. is considering joining forces with Iran to control the crisis unfolding in Iraq.
That's right. While remaining cautious, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry recently said he wouldn't rule out anything that would be constructive to providing real stability in Iraq. This as Sunni militants in Iraq seized another city, this time the northern city of Tal Afar, according to officials and residents there. The city of 200,000 located between the provincial capital of Mosul and Syria was taken just before dawn on Monday, according to Mayor mayor Abdullah Abdul. Now, unlike other cities that fell to ISIL militants, which have been majority Sunni, Tal Afar has a big Shia community. There's no good solution yet on how to stop the country from possibly breaking up along sectarian lines. ISIL wants to create a separate Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, of course, but the Obama administration is said to be considering airstrikes and unarmed surveillance flights as options in addition to the aircraft carrier and warships already on their way to the Gulf. Now, on the potential of working together with Iran, the Pentagon cautioned that there was no plan to coordinate military activity with Tehran. Meanwhile, in China, 13 people have been executed on terrorism charges in the western region of Xinjiang. State media Xinhua said the men had plotted violent attacks in different parts of Xinjiang, including one that killed 24 policemen and local residents last June. And in a separate case, 3 others received the death penalty for a deadly attack at Beijing's Tiananmen Square last October. In court, police played video footage of the strike that showed a group plowing through a busy crowd using a white Jeep. 5 people were killed and 40 others hurt in that attack. Police also presented other evidence, including swords and ropes used in a subsequent attack. State media said the 3 were convicted of organizing and leading a terrorist group, as well as using dangerous methods to endanger public security.
And finally, Russia has halted gas supplies to Ukraine in a major escalation of tensions between the two countries.
Right. The massive energy shutdown comes, of course, as Moscow's Gazprom and the Ukrainian government failed to reach a new gas deal ahead of Monday's deadline. Gazprom said it also filed a lawsuit to recover Ukraine's total outstanding debt of $4.5 billion. The gas giant, however, stressed that it would continue to supply European nations at full volume. Meanwhile, Kiev is refusing to pay its debts in protest of an 80% price hike. Ukraine's Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk said the gas dispute with Russia was part of what he called a plan to destroy Ukraine. And that's a wrap of the global headlines we're following this morning.
And still to come, the recent series of disasters in Korea have prompted many to shift their focus to protection and safety, and new technology has been developed to help keep us safe in unexpected situations. We'll be talking about that on IT Plus.
Korean pop music fans out there, you have something to look forward to, a new musical starring some of your favorite artists, and our Im Yoon-hee joins us with more on that. Good morning.
Good morning, Young. So it's no secret that musicals use the help of big-name K-pop stars to, boost their success and bring in a larger audience. So Singin' in the Rain is a brand new musical being produced by SMCNC, a subsidiary group of SM Entertainment, and they're making it a point to show that K-pop can be applied to various different genres. Take a look. Set in the 1950s in a romantic Hollywood, Don Lockwood is a silent film star with the humble roots as a musician, dancer, and stuntman. And now he's stuck between his jealous leading lady, Lena Lamont, and his true love, Kathy Selden. The musical, Singin' in the Rain, is based upon the 1952 film and has been adapted by theater troupes all over the world. Now, recently, a Korean version has been added to the list, and the help of some very popular faces have been cast, showing the versatility and talent of K-pop stars.
Even though this movie was released 50 years ago, I enjoy it so much. I've seen it over 20 times. I was so excited when I was cast for the main role of Don Lockwood, and I will do my very best at dancing, singing, and acting.
Wow, so we're talking about SMCNC. They've been rapidly expanding their business to sign contracts with MCs, actors, and more. And now they're getting into the realm of musicals. Now, we know the benefits, as you mentioned, of K-pop stars and musicals. It brings in a crowd from overseas and a lot more ticket sales, right? But what's in it for the actors there?
So these actors want to go into musicals because some of them actually ultimately want to go into the musical realm. So in the case of Singing in the Rain, it actually cast EXO as Baekhyun, and he said in an interview that he wanted to use this musical as an opportunity to show his talent and to show his musical growth. And so these actors and K-pop stars, they really want to use this opportunity to try different fields and to go into musicals.
So we saw a lot of stars, K-pop stars, like maybe make an appearance in 1 or 2 musicals, right? It's almost not fair. The game has like really changed with SM getting into it, right? So tell us what they're trying to do, SM Entertainment.
Right, so recently they really have been trying to expand and apply to K-pop to all potentially applicable fields. And so they actually are planning a 4-part original Korean musical series that they have set to show at the COEX Atrium. And so you can expect to see a lot of K-pop stars with that. So they are trying to make a push and expand definitely with the K-pop in the musical realm.
All right, well, looking forward to how far SM Entertainment is going to take this whole thing, right? Well, thank you very much, Uni.
My pleasure.
And still ahead on Korea Today. Now, do you have back aches? Now, your back is very important, and I cannot stress that enough. Now, a vital part of your body that keeps you supported and upright, the spine. Now, modern day lifestyles and stress take their toll on your spine, and a lack of exercise too, but that doesn't mean you have to suffer silently. Health Check has more.
And as Korea is set to take on Russia in its first World Cup match tomorrow or Wednesday Korea time, many are looking up where the street cheering will be held this year, although Young just mentioned earlier in the program. For more on this and other keywords, our Seo Mi-sorang joins us from the digital room. Good morning, Mi-sorang.
Good morning, Jinju. Korea's street cheering during the World Cup is always very exciting. I'll get to more on this in just a minute. But first, let's run through some of the other issues that are trending online. A new transportation card for nationwide use will come into effect this weekend. 17-year-old shortstop Park Hyo-jun is set to sign up with the Yankees come late July. According to CIA's World Factbook, Korea has the lowest birth rate of all OECD member countries, and idol group Beast topped all 9 major music charts with their latest mini-album titled Good Luck. Now, going back to street cheering, if you're wondering where to go to join the massive Red Devil crowd for tomorrow's match, there are many designated spots nationwide, so it's just a matter of choosing which one best suits you and your family and friends. It's hard not to get caught up in the atmosphere when hundreds and hundreds of people are dressed up in the same color, rooting for the same team, and are united in their reactions. For the length of the game, we're not strangers, but comrades. The Seoul Plaza in front of the City Hall has long been considered the main street cheering spot for major sporting events, but with the Seoul Ferry Memorial Altar there right now, the cheering hotspot has been moved to Gwanghwamun for this year. Quite fitting because this is where the street cheering tradition all began some 20 years ago. Public cheering will also be held at the Seoul Olympic Park and in front of COEX, where singer Psy will make an appearance, as well as in some 30 other spots nationwide. Moving on to the issue of transit cards. Currently, if you're wanting to go from Seoul to, say, Busan, for example, there are a number of ways you can do that. You can take your own car on the expressway or catch a bus, KTX, taxi, or any combinations thereof. Currently, you need a separate card for each of these options. But very soon, this is all about to change. Let's take a look. Coming this Saturday, you'll be able to use buses, subways, railways, and expressways nationwide using a single transit card. While it will take a little longer for certain transportation methods and cities, the big date is this Saturday, the 21st. Like the existing transit cards, the unified cards will operate on a pre-purchase recharge basis, but with added functions. The new cards won't be city-specific, so it can be used for subways and buses in all the major cities, as well as on railways and intercity buses nationwide, and even to pay toll fees at expressways. The unified cards will be available for purchase from this Saturday. And As for the pre-existing cards, they can be used for up to 3 years from now on, during which time they will be gradually phased out. And that's it for me. This has been Seo Misorang with your daily news sum up.
Following a recent series of accidents, there has been a growing sense of interest in safety and disaster readiness, with more people taking part in related drills. Not only that, research for disaster prevention technology has been intensified, and at Ulsan National Institute of Science and Technology, the main focus is on gas leak detection. What researchers here are closely observing are stag beetles. The patterns on their backs that look like tattoos are none other than the newly developed electric circuits that have gas leakage sensors attached to them.
We have created an electronic circuit that people can wear, and one that sticks and bends. It can detect even the lowest gas concentrations at 1 ppm.
When the circuit detects a gas leak, it transmits the data wirelessly and also receives power without using any wires. The circuit is made with carbon, not metals, so it bends easily. It does not come with any adhesives, but if you float it in water, you can attach it like a sticker. Not only that, it can also be attached to the surface of skin, clothing, newspapers, fingernails, plants, and many other places that were not conventionally possible, allowing for better detection.
For example, where there is nuclear or radiation contamination, we can stick it onto the surrounding environment, where people can't go, to determine the contamination levels.
In buildings and large bridges, there are many sensors that we are unaware of. To detect changes that usually come with older structures, there are corrosion detection sensors and sensors to identify cracks. There are also temperature fluctuation sensors for higher temperatures. Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, or KAIST, has developed new sensors that come with added functions to existing devices in order to better detect the most subtle of changes. The sensor is powered wirelessly, and after conducting a self-checkup, it transmits the data without any wires, helping prevent accidents ahead of time. Meanwhile, there are also two types of non-contact laser sensors that you can use to detect damage to structures just by firing the beams onto the surface. One can be used on the structure as a whole to quickly determine damages, while the other laser is used on more specific areas. After conducting a self-checkup using laser signals, it sends out the changes to let people know what damage the structure has sustained. More technologies to prevent disasters and improve emergency readiness are being actively developed to create a safer environment.
And to get a closer look at how these technologies could prevent disasters involving large structures or bridges, we're now joined by Professor Son Hoon from the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at KAIST. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
So this ultrasonic wireless sensor, could this only be used to detect cracks or damages on facades, or could it go through places there where we can't really see?
Yes, actually this is a prototype of wireless sensor that we are developing, and this sensor can be placed even in hidden locations, which are normally difficult to access for visual inspections. So the advantage of this sensor is that first, this sensor can detect even very small cracks in the range of sub-micrometers. And also, the whole data processing can be performed inside the sensor unit, and then only the outcomes are going to be transmitted to a base station through wireless sensing technologies. So once we stick this sensor to hidden locations, then this sensor operates automatically. So we call this sensor as stick and detect sensor.
And then basically you just put it in there, and that would really show the structural rigidity, and if there were any compromises to the rigidity, then it would show up right away, which would do a lot for safety. Now, forgive me for my ignorance in this subject, but non-contact laser, what is the difference from that and just regular lasers?
Yes, the main difference is that unlike two other sensing techniques, we are using two different kind of laser beams. We use one laser beam for creating ultrasonic waves, like you saw in the previous video clip. And then we can create ultrasonic waves, and then using the other laser beam, we can measure the responses. So by scanning those two laser beams, we can visualize even hidden defects. And to my best knowledge, this is the first full non-contact laser ultrasonic systems developed for field applications.
Yeah, staying on that non-contact laser sensor, could it only be used for buildings or bridges, or is there any other places we can use them?
Actually, there are ample applications. And one example is that we are adopting this technology for crack detection in semiconductor chips. Because currently, there's no champion technology which can be applied during the fabrication of semiconductor chips, because there's no way that you can place any discrete sensors to those micro semiconductor chips during the fabrication. So that's where we come in, because in our case, we can just scan those semiconductor chips as they are fabricated using laser beams.
Well, it sounds like you have something really big over here which can be used in many different applications that you just mentioned. What kind of plans do you have for the future with this technology or any other technologies involving sensors and non-contact lasers?
Yes, for the next few years, actually, I like to focus my time and efforts on advancing these sensing technologies and making transition to commercializations. As a matter of fact, we already signed some licensing agreement with some private companies. And we are expected to deliver some prototype system in next 1 or 2 years.
So it won't take long until
Exactly.
commercialization.
So maybe in a couple of years we'll have those sensors fitted in all the new buildings that are made out there, making everything a little bit safer, right?
Yes, maybe I can be billionaire by that time. Who knows?
And then you can come back on the program and
absolutely, if you invite me. Anytime.
Of course. Thank you very much, Professor.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Now, 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning, the South Korea national football team will face off against Russia to kick off their group stage matches.
And to get a preview of what to expect, we have SJ joining us in the studio this morning. Good morning, SJ.
Good morning, guys. Now, just like you guys say, 24 hours left until, the kickoff of Korea and Russia. And this is the first match in their Group H matchup, right? And the first match is always going to be very crucial. This is basically going to see how the team is going to be. So today, what I'm going to do is basically take a look at Team Russia, their key players, their strengths and weaknesses. So we are going to start things off by taking a look at their key players. So far we have Sergei Ignishevich and Vasily Verevusky, who two veteran defenders who are the center of Russia's great defense. Now, although Berezovsky won't be 100% in this match due to a minor injury, still, he's going to be a crucial player there. Now, these two guys are going to give Korea a tough time in their offense, but the good news is Russia's captain Roman Shurikov will not be present in the midfield as he's out with an injury, so Russia will have some problems in the midfield here.
So that actually is good news for the Korean national team there.
Well, with the one person missing, right?
Well, I mean, any advantage that we can get, right?
Right, exactly.
So about Russia now, their strengths and weaknesses, we do have to know a little bit more about that, right?
Right. Obviously, with strengths, there are going to be weaknesses. And I think Team Russia, they have their crucial strengths and also their crucial weaknesses that Korea needs to utilize. So let's take a look at some of their strengths and weaknesses here. Now, of course, one thing that we always talk about, Russia has great team chemistry, especially especially since all their team members play in the domestic league. And I mentioned before, they have great defense. Now, Korea has a hard time scoring at this moment, and obviously with great defense, this is going to be a problem. So when it comes to the offense, though, Russia tends to score early. So for Korea, it's important that they focus early on. But we are obviously going to talk about their weaknesses as well, right? And this is one of those things a lot of people need to focus on. Russia really has a hard time defending on headers. And what does that mean? You have to utilize all these chances you have on the corner kicks and also on the set pieces as well. So some of the things that you need to take a look at.
And the most important thing, how does Korea need to prepare for this big match?
Well, I mean, obviously the stamina is going to be an issue, obviously with the heat and everything, but we did take a look at the strengths and weaknesses. So it's important, obviously, to take a look at the weaknesses and see how they can capitalize on their weakness. And I talked about this before. Russia has given up most of their goals on headers, around roughly 60% of the goals during the World Cup qualifiers, which means, like I said, Korea needs to focus on those corners and set pieces, which means starting Park Ju-young will not work for Team Korea. Instead, you have to start the much taller Kim Shin-wook on top. Now, also, since Russia struggles in attacking from the wing, countering from the side will be crucial as well. So who are those crucial key players in that strategy? Well, utilizing Lee Chung-young and also Son Heung-min, who play wing, who will, of course, be the two most important players in the World Cup, in my opinion.
You know, SJ, you did mention a few days ago that they've been very reluctant. Their confidence level has been low, and they've been trying to get that perfect opportunity for that perfect scoring chance instead of just going out there and just shooting it or heading it in, right?
Yeah.
You know, and hopefully they can just go ahead and just play ball and just enjoy it, right?
Exactly.
Okay, what are your predictions?
Well, you know, obviously we all know that my predictions are pretty bad. But I mean, taking a look, I mean, there's a couple of things that you need to take into consideration. I mean, earlier today, we had the Iran-Nigeria match, which was 0-0, the first draw of the tournament. And
very
other
slow
than
match.
Other than that, it's been a very high-scoring match throughout the tournament. So you can kind of see that there's going to be a high-scoring match, but because the defense of Russia, like I mentioned, is going to be pretty tough, I'm going to say, and don't kill me here, I'm going to hope that I'm wrong here.
Oh, you have a nation of red devils that are going to kill you.
I think Russia is going to end up winning this one 2-0. I think Korea's
2-0?
going to 2-0. Yes. I know you guys probably don't agree with me.
I'm going to throw this pen at you.
Exactly. But I do hope that I'm wrong. But Russia's defense is going to be pretty tough to, I think, break through.
All right. Well, sounds good. Good luck to the team there. And thank you, SJ. And tomorrow morning, we'll see if your predictions turn out to be true or not.
Hopefully I'm wrong, right? But of course, before I do say goodbye, I do want to take a look at the current scores in today's World Cup matches.
In the sky, in the sky. And when we're side to side, side to side. Show the world where you're from, show 'em where you're from. Show the world we are one.
Earlier this month, a meeting on back and spinal health was held with ambassadors from Thailand, Greece, and the Philippines, as well as CEOs from international companies. An enthusiastic question and answer session took place, highlighting the great interest people have on spinal health. According to one survey, the number of patients admitted to the hospital due to spinal problems has increased by 50% since 2010. Due to prolonged hours at the desk or bad habits such as crossing your legs, more people are struggling with spinal problems. A healthy spine is an essential part of a healthy lifestyle, so we learn more about how to keep your back in shape.
Now, you're never really concerned about back problems until you finally pull a muscle or strain something in your back, and you find out that it's tough just getting up, walking around, or doing any daily activities, and that's how important your back is. And we're going to be talking about back problems and more. Dr. Lee Jun-ho from the Uridir Hospital International Patient Center joins us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for the invitation.
You know, doctor, we talk about this a lot. We hear this in Korea a lot, disc, right? And that is referring to a herniated disc, right? Tell us about herniated discs.
It's kind of a common saying among the general population, especially in Korea, to term as a disc whenever they come up to an event of feeling some back or neck pain. But actually, disc itself is a little bit inappropriate word to express their phenomena. Disc itself is like a crucial joint that's located in between two separate bones inside the spinal column, and it works as a very crucial shock absorber, like an automobile, to have to promote every daily activity.
Cushion and also movement, it aids in everything.
And every time there's something untoward happen to this joint, like some protrusion, some cracking, or some degeneration happens, this can impinge a very severe compression to the underlying nerve tissues and create so-called discogenic back pain or leg pain, which we general population calls as a disc.
And I usually sleep in a fetal position, or I lay on my stomach when I read books, and my mom always says to sit up straight. So are these positions really bad for your back?
Yeah, sleeping positions in general.
Actually, the sleeping posture, like one side buried and like some crawled posture, that has nothing to do with the development of disc itself. So since the sleeping posture is still a relaxed posture, it doesn't transfer any kind of body weight or some vertical loading to the spine itself. The joint itself, disc joint itself, is much more vulnerable to the daily activity like running, exercising, sitting too long in the chair, office work, everything. It has much more to do with the development of disc problem instead of some specific sleeping posture.
So that magical mattress is not going to help you out.
Yeah, and there is also growing interest on scoliosis, and because Korean figure skating, Kim Yeon suffered from that illness as well.
Yeah, and she was able to overcome that and skate her way to Olympic gold even with those conditions.
So could scoliosis develop into herniated discs?
Actually, this curved spine, what's called in medical terminology, we call it scoliosis. It's expressed whenever you are the spine column itself has been a little bit tilted or veered to one side more than 10 degrees whenever it's viewed from the front or back. Less than 20 degree, especially for the young patient, it's doesn't have that significant meaning. Whenever it's in between 20 to 40 degrees, it has some impact. So external orthotics or brace wearing is recommended for the young patient who has some growth potency to prevent any further curvature formation. But the thing is that when it exceeds more than 40 degrees, it can have a very crucial or some significant impairment to the lung or heart functions. So before producing any kind of some significant sequelae, sometimes definitely corrective surgery might be mandatory. But these kind of rules are only applied for the young patient who has a lot of growth potency. And unfortunately, most of the Korean population are very elderly society. It has a much more higher preponderance of development of degenerative scoliosis instead of idiopathic or young scoliosis like Yeona Kim had. And this young idiopathic scoliosis has nothing much to do with the connection with the development of disc problem, while this degenerative elderly scoliosis has much more high preponderance to develop this kind of disc problem because uneven loading to the one side has much more high preponderance of developing some significant problem inside the spine column.
Well, Dr. Lee, I've had some spine problems before in the past, and the pain, it jars down to your legs, even to your lower calves. I mean, can the pain actually extend to your neck as well as your shoulders and just the general chest area also?
Yes, most of the initial symptoms that has been expressed from the general population whenever they are come up to an event of some back or neck pain is very similar to having a problem actually inside the spine column. But this is not always true because our neck or back is very complex structures inside there, and there's a lot of diverse tendons, ligaments, and even peripheral nerves and nerves there. And whenever they are irritated somehow, they can produce a lot of diverse symptoms, sometimes very similar to the spine problem. So the back or neck pain, some radiating pain to the leg, does not always equal to the disc problem. So always try to consult to the specialist just don't stick to the idea that I have a real disc problem. Just contact the specialist to have a proper diagnosis.
Exactly, exactly. Diagnosis
That's
is very important, but if you are diagnosed with it, then also treatment is important as well. In the past, traditionally, we just thought about surgery. Surgery was like the main treatment that people would go for, but there are other treatments, right? We'll take a look in this next report about what kind of treatment options are there.
Bashma used to struggle with simple daily routines because of back problems. After hearing about Korea's advanced spinal programs, she decided to get treatment in the country and is now receiving therapy after a successful surgery.
Before surgery, my back and neck both hurt. But after surgery, I've been alternating between injection treatment and physical therapy. And now, my back is so much better. It's changed my life.
The surgery that she received is getting a lot of attention lately. It is called the Mini-Max spinal procedure. It uses an endoscope and laser, and because the incision is minimal, it allows for easier recovery and less side effects. For non-surgical options, there are injections and high-frequency heat treatments. Spinal injections apply medication directly into the disc, reducing the infection and edema in order to relieve pain. High-frequency treatment involves a special needle that uses high-frequency waves but does not involve making incisions into the body.
So this Mini-Max procedure, it comes with minimal incisions, so I believe that a lot of people will prefer it. So how is it different from other conventional surgeries that we're used to?
It's like the Mini-Max is like a short term for the minimal trauma to the patient, while the maximal effect, like what the conventional open surgical procedure has done so far. But what I can say is that the real differential point is that most of these procedures are done under local anesthesia. Patient doesn't go to sleep during the procedure. Have a direct conversation with the surgeons or procedures, and you can get a direct feedback whether this is positive or negative immediately from the patient upon the treatment. So I think the early recuperation or recovery is pretty guaranteed, and early return to the work is also guaranteed.
Is there pain involved? I mean, you said it's local anesthesia, but I mean,
don't get scary because we are doing a topical anesthesia over the skin, so patient doesn't feel at all. There can be some minor provocation of pain during the procedure, but we can directly get the feedback and get up anesthesia for the patient to be silent.
So what kind of patients should receive this Mini-Max procedure? What kind of patients are subject to this surgery?
This is like a patient suffering from one side neck or back and arm or leg pain combined, related to the soft disc herniation mostly. And some of the patients who are suffering from very severe condition like very consolidated calcified disc or some very severe stenosis inside are not proper candidate for this treatment. So those patients with have a very highly daily activity involved with soft disc problem acutely, who really wish to return to work as soon as possible, they're busy, are very properly indicated for this treatment.
Now, how permanent is this? I mean, I know even surgical procedures, they're not permanent, but how long does this last, treatment?
So far, the longevity of this treatment cannot be set up in terms of some few years or something like that, because this Mini-Max treatment is truly not a panacea for treating every spinal problem. So keep up with some kind of maintenance, which is actually the patient role is much more crucial to prolong this treatment effect, even making this longevity for an eternal effect for the patient. So patient role of keeping up maintenance, like doing a lot of recuperation, rehab exercise, is much more crucial after this treatment.
So it depends on the patient. So in order to stay healthy, to keep our spinal health, what are some of the tips that you can give us?
It's like I want to just point out 3 points. Is that the number one, always try to keep in good shape with daily proper exercise.
Exercise regularly.
And avoid any kind of some abrupt body weight gain or something like that. Yeah, try to keep in shape is utmost important. Second thing is that have a good nutrition. A lot of protein or calcium ingredient supplements also for the bony protection. Thirdly, whenever you come up with this kind of some pain problem, try to consult and have a proper diagnosis by the specialist instead of some local masseurs or some chiropractitioners. So any kind of some initial improper treatment or diagnosis can lead to a very long-term sequelae, and that can lead to a very prolonged treatment period. So I really want to say that try to consult with the specialist first instead of having any kind of some untoward local measures first.
And would you add posture to that list as well, doctor? Your general everyday posture?
Actually, I stay in the chair for a while, so I can say my posture is good, but try to keep in shape because our body and neck should be like in C shape when you see it from the lateral.
Okay.
So try to always use some cushions at least.
Sit up straight.
Sit up straight, get some exercise, and lose that weight up on top. So
that's right.
Keep that balance, right? Well, thank you very much, doctor, for joining us today.
And many thanks for the interview.
All right, and that does it for our Tuesday edition of our Korea Today program, and we will be back tomorrow at 7 a.m.
when the World Cup match
That's
is
right.
on.
It's going to be an exciting one, and we're going to see if SJ is right or wrong.
Okay, we'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching.